Did anybody notice the new floor in my last video? Yeah, well, that's new. It's called a floating floor. It's very nice. I have off from work today, so I can be up late. Everyone go on vote. A while ago, about an hour ago, I was on Dominique Moceano's Facebook page, and she posted an article that the U.S. Olympic Committee, and also the International Olympic Committee, by the way, have started the process to revoke the gymnastics team's recognition. That would mean if they continue with the process, which is almost certain at this point, they will completely eradicate the American Olympic Gymnastics program. Eradicate. And hopefully they will oversee the building of a new gymnastics program, which means new rules, new people. Well, the gymnasts may be the same, but the governing people, the guys in the offices, those guys are going to be entirely new. Okay? And this is something that is done very seldom and is often a last resort. Now, the capstone reason is the Larry Nassar scandal. Larry Nassar was the so-called doctor, as you can call him that, who worked for Twistars Gymnasium, who worked for Michigan State University's athletic department rather, and who worked for USA Gymnastics. He was physically on the floor when the Magnificent Seven won the gold medal. He's still in that article on my wall, framed. When Carrie Strug shattered her ankle, he ran to her aid. He's on video. Most guys don't recognize the doctor on the floor, but when that incident happened, he got worldwide acclaim for helping Carrie Strug, and after that, every gymnast in the world wanted to go to him. He developed his own methods for examining the pelvic area and vagina area, but his new developed method was basically a ruse so he could go in and fondle and massage girls' vaginas. His youngest documented victim was his best friend's daughter, who is an adult now but was 6 years old at the time. The number at the current state is 336 women. They were little girls when it happened, and today some of them are close to 40, some of them are still under 13. And if you look at the 2012 gymnastics team, Raisman, Douglas, Maroney, Weber, and Ross. He got all of them. 2016, Raisman and Douglas came back. They were joined by Hernandez, Biles, and Koshin. He got all of them except Hernandez. So the last two Olympic teams, Hernandez is the only woman that was not abused. And the last Olympic team that did not have at least one abuse victim was Magnificent Seven. Now, I was one of the first people to say this should happen a long time ago, and I don't have a lot of power, so someone out there thinks like me. And I gave some examples on Moceano's page a while ago, and I reissued them today. I went over one thing again. Moceano's daughter is Carmen. Now, I said her name is public. Her name is public knowledge. It's not a secret. And I told Moceano what I told her and her husband a couple of times. I said, you wouldn't leave me alone with Carmen for 5 minutes, and you know I would die before I put my hands on her. But the Olympic Committee is going to take these girls to the other side of the planet for a couple of weeks, some under age 18. Okay? Well, what happens when you go to the Olympics, the athletes stay in the Olympic Village, and their parents, spouses, children, etc., lovers, whatever, intimate partners, stay in hotels and shit. so they're not near them. You know, they see each other here and there when they go to, maybe they'll sneak into a practice, or maybe they'll be in the stands and they'll come down and say, "Hey, how you doing?" But for the most part, the athletes are isolated from their families, and that might not be such a big deal in theory, but when you've got a bunch of sexual abuse going on, it's a big deal. And it's not just Larry Nassar, because Bella Caroli, who was Mosheano's personal coach, was a rageaholic. And he was a 6'4" guy who would just bend over and scream at girls that are 4 feet tall like no tomorrow. And when the camera's on, you see Bella Caroli hugging and kissing, high-fiving. When the camera's off, he's a fucking nut maniac. Okay? Valery Lukin, Nasty Lukin's father, he took over the sport after Nassar left. But when he took over the sport, he said literally nothing about the abuse, period. He didn't come forward and say, "Well, this is what I plan to do. Here's how I plan to protect the girls. These are my rules." Nothing. None of that shit. In fact, the one time he did open his fucking mouth, he said, "Nothing needs to change." And he also had a history because he was accused by 2 girls, one being Vanessa Atler, of, weighing her 3 times a day, forbidding her from drinking water, making her run with a garbage bag on her to sweat, fat shaming her into a fucking eating disorder. Okay? So Valery, he's a little scumbag too. And it's just, I actually said on Mosheano's page that the abuse was rampant. Okay? I said USAG has perfected abuse, and Larry Nassar is their masterpiece. That's the truth. So what's going to happen is the committee is almost certainly going to revoke the program, dismantle it, and rebuild it. And that may very well mean that in the meantime, if it takes a year, you may not see gymnastics, men or women, at the Olympics in 2020. Now, that sucks because a lot of these girls deserve to be there. They do. But, in fact, they just ended the world the other day. Simone Biles became the first American woman to win a medal in every event. She won her 6th title at the Worlds. Morgan Hurd, who was a Chinese girl adopted by an American family, raised here since infancy, she won the Worlds in 2017 when Biles took the year off. And Morgan Hurd came back to the Worlds this year to compete with Biles, and she came in second to Biles, okay, which is astounding unto itself. I was told the other day. So they have records, they have dreams, they put a lot of effort into this stuff. But you have to protect them. And I gave an example on Mosheano's page, because Mosheano posted 2 articles of it. I had to comment both of them because I'm Vinny. Many years ago, the TV show Saved by the Bell. Yeah, I know, right? They had an episode where the characters in Saved by the Bell have selected students to act as teachers. And Zach's girlfriend, Kelly, is a history teacher. Zach, the troublemaker, is the principal. And several football stars, including Zach's best friend, cheat on Kelly's test. And the real principal, Mr. Belding, comes to the acting principal, Zach, and says, "A good principal doesn't make the right decision, the fair decisions. A good principal makes the right decisions." And Zach went to the pep rally, and Zach said, "These players cheat on Miss Kapowski's test. The team will play without them." Okay? And I was a day camp counselor in my younger days. And I would be 18 years old, and I would be in charge of 6-year-old boys. And I would tell them, "I'm your counselor first, your friend second." Okay? Now that I'm a police crossing guard, I am responsible for well over 100 kids, plus elderly, disabled, pregnant people, blah, blah, blah. okay? And I gotta lay down the law sometimes. And a lot of times I gotta protect them from themselves. And I'm not there to win hearts and minds. Case in point, the first girl whose life I saved, she thought I was the biggest pain in the ass in the world. But that's okay because A, she knew I was in charge. B, she knew that when anything went wrong, I would be there to protect her. She might not like it, she might not like me, but I'll be there to protect her. And I had one woman, she was pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and she would go to pick up her friend's son, and an hour later would pick up her son. And a couple times I caught her running for the bus. And I would tell her, you cannot run because you're pregnant. And I yelled at her. This is an adult, and I'm yelling at her. And end of the year, she moved out of the neighborhood. She kissed me on the way out, so it wasn't personal. But you gotta lay down the law. Okay? And it might not be nice for the US Olympic Committee or the International Olympic Committee to revoke gymnastics and start over. It might not be nice if the gymnastics teams have to miss a couple of competitions, even Olympics, 1 year. That would suck. But what else sucks is being abused. That's the point. Okay? You cannot have this shit. Now, if you had a so-called doctor who was touching girls and they reported it to the police right away and he went to prison right away, I'd be fine with that. But the problem was every other girl complained. Some girls were ignored. Some girls were told to flat out shut up. Okay? So you have a system of adults where every single adult involved is closing their eyes, suppressing evidence, witness tampering. Okay? The Corollis were investigated by the FBI. The FBI doesn't have any evidence to bring against them, but they were investigated. So when you have a system where you got coaches that are being investigated for abuse, coaches that are covering up abuse, a doctor who's playing fucking finger shit with vaginas, little girls' vaginas, okay? You can't have that shit. And I am sorry if a couple of girls have to, or a couple of boys rather, because boys too have to miss some competitions. I will miss them at the Olympics if they can't go. I will be the first person to apologize and offer my love and respect to any gymnast personally. But I can't deal with this. And neither can they. Don't forget, I would watch these kids on TV and they'll be having the time of their lives, doing all these fucking crazy moves, winning all these medals. They'll be on stage, on the platform, on the podium. The national anthem will be playing, okay? And they'll go in the back room and get sexually assaulted. These girls are having the time of their lives on the floor, and then when they go in the back room, they get sexually assaulted. That's not right. That's not right. Period. It's just not right. And if firing every single administrator, and if suspending competition for a couple of years is what it takes to stop this shit, and so be it. Because the administrators were being fired, suspended, removed, revoked, resigning, back and forth. Okay? Guys are being investigated by various law enforcement agencies, back and forth. There's no reason to believe that there's not other abuse going on, whether verbal or psychological. And keep in mind, I have a cousin who is trained for gymnastics now. She's 6. No, she's 4. Okay? And Diane Mochano said that if she's older, when the time is ready, she'll give her some pointers, give her some lessons. She'll do that for her if she wants to. But, you know, being a person whose cousin is doing gymnastics, and yes, it's a very young age, beginner's classes, but that's where it starts. The youngest documented girl was 6. She was his best friend's daughter. But there were girls in the gym, 10, 11, 12 years old, getting sexually abused. Okay? And I don't want my cousin to go into an environment like this. And I'm sure you feel the same about your cousins, your nieces, your daughters, your sisters. Okay? This is wrong. And I support the U.S. Olympic Committee's decision. I support the IOC's decision. And I would suggest, if I had a say in it, I would suspend gymnastics for at least a year, if not more. I would tell the girls and the boys they can go back to the gyms and train all they want for as long as they want. But in the meantime, there's not going to be any competitions. And I would rebuild a new committee from scratch. And I would have outside people come in, people who are answerable to nobody. And those outside people would come in, and they would set the rules for who's left alone with the girls, who touches the girls, when they touch them, how medical records are handled, who's in the room when the girls are being examined. Okay? And I would not allow the new gymnastics committee to do the sleeping arrangements. I would say flat out, I don't give a fuck. If the girls are on, I would say flat out, every single girl under 18 has to have a guardian, period. And they will stay in the bedroom with their guardian. They will not be separated from their guardians. That's what I would say, period. And I would say if a girl's going to be examined by the doctor, there's going to be another woman in the room with her. Whether that woman is her guardian or a nurse or something, there will be another woman in the room. And that's just the basic place I would start. Okay? This shit needs to stop. And I know for a fact it will continue tomorrow if it could. Because if you look at all the adults involved, they were absent at the sentencing hearings. They were absent when Mochiano spoke before the Senate. They were absent when Mochiano went back to the Senate to get a bill approved. When it came down to the wire, they either ran away, or they hid, or they resigned quietly, or they covered their own ass. A couple of people even made commercials about how wonderful they were and about how things are going to improve now. And when the gymnastics committee apologized to the girls, okay, I've stepped on girls' toes and had a more sincere apology. I'll give you an example. The other day, I had a woman and her 2 daughters, which includes the daughter who has the same birthday as me. They're in the corner, and the mother's friend is there. I see a car. The car ends up making a right on red, but I thought the car was going to come forward. So I pushed my body in front of them and stepped on the mother's friend's toe. The apology I gave her was more sincere than the apology the gymnastics organization gave to girls that were sexually abused. Okay, it was, oh, we're sorry we had some problems. We're sorry we were inconvenienced. Okay? Enough. Tear the organization down, rebuild it, and ban every single adult that had anything to do with the old organization. Okay, thank you guys. I gotta go.